Okay. All right. Okay. Just to review what we looked into previous class, there are different approaches for leadership: traits approach, behavioral approach, and contingency approach. Traits basically, uh, in this approach, the ability of the or the trait of the leader is inherent. It could be like a physical qualities or the mental qualities and other leadership qualities like leadership styles. It believes that it is inherent and it cannot be taught. So this approach is where it is thought as leaders are born, they are not made. So that is the traits approach. And in case of a behavioral approach, it's mostly based on the behavior. So here, the notion here, important notion here is like leaders are not born. Okay, they can be trained. They can be trained very well into different styles. Prominent in behavioral approach is the assumption that leaders are not born but can be trained. That is the most important aspect of the behavioral approach. And we looked into the different styles of leadership. So basically, there are three styles of leadership. One is autocratic, and second one is democratic or progressive leadership, and the fourth one is a free rein. So we'll see what are the different characteristics of these three different leadership, and what are the advantages, disadvantages having this kind of a leadership. First one is the autocratic leadership. In this type of leadership, the leader alone determines the policies and makes plans. So in this style, leader is like he thinks like all the policies, identifying the policies, making the plans, it is his responsibility. So he does not involve anybody else. So he will be the sole person who will create what policy should be, what kinds of plans should be there, how the work should be done. It is all decided by the particular leader. In case of a autocratic leader, he tells other what to do and how to do it. So he will tell others what should be done and how it should be done. He demands strict obedience and relies on power. So, in this style of leadership, he expects all the team, all the employees are obedient to him, and he solely relies on the power. So, whatever the because of his position, he has the power, he has the authority. He completely relies on that power. He will not use any other kind of a power like a personal power. So he'll not try to use a personal power. He completely relies on the power that is given by the position. An autocratic leader may sometimes be paternalistic or benevolent, also who uses rewards for obtaining obedience from his employees. So, autocratic leader, uh, he is very particular about his team, and he expects the obedience, and also for getting that obedience from the employees, he used the reward system. Both the forms of autocratic leadership, authoritarian and benevolent, are disliked by the employees. So there are two types in the autocratic. He can be authoritarian or a benevolent. Authoritarian, he uses too much of power, and benevolent is exactly opposite to that. This kind of a behavior is not really liked by the employees. In one form, the employees remains under a constant fear. Okay, when a person is a authoritarian, because constantly he will use his power. Employees are under fear. In other forms, they remain under constant gratitude. So they are always they remain gratitude. So both kind of behavior. So when a person is authoritarian, then whole employees, all the team is they are under fear, so they will not be able to perform to their fullest extent. And opposite to that, constant gratitude. When leader is benevolent, the employees are very gratitude to him, so they will not be able to justify some of the thing or challenge some of the things. So the same scenario, they will not be able to perform the task. So whatever is to please the leader, they will work in that kind of a attitude. In both the forms, the leader is the key person. The whole operation of the organization depends on him. In whether in case of autocratic, the whole operation of the organization is completely dependent on one person. So that is the leader. And if work gets done or not done, it solely depends on one person. So you can think this is also a kind of a disadvantage, because in his absence it may function inadequately or not at all. Suppose if that particular leader is not present, then the complete work will be stopped, or it may not be done as per the requirements. So what are the advantages of having autocratic leadership? This type of leadership can increase the efficiency, save time, and get quick results, especially in the crisis or an emergency situation. So here you have to see this particular kind of this style of leadership. It is very, very, very useful in the crisis, okay, or in the emergency situation where things needs to be done properly and efficiently. In that particular case, this is a very to have a autocratic leader is advantageous. The paternalistic form of this style of leadership works well with the employees who have low tolerance for ambiguity, feel insecure with freedom, and even minor decision making requirements, thrive under clear, detailed, and achievable directives. So this would be beneficial if the employees or the team is such that there is a very low tolerance for the ambiguity, or they feel insecure, okay, when there is a lot of freedom is given, and the team is such that they are not good with decision making, or they hesitant to make decision. In such kind of a team, what happens is the leader will give all the details, what should be done, how it should be done, everything will be given clearly. If the team is like that, who wants a clear cut instruction, and they should be known what should be done and how it should be done, if they are happy, then autocratic leader, the such employees will really like the autocratic leader. Chain of command and division of work, who is supposed to do what, are clearly and fully understood by all. So in this, what is the chain of command, like what is the how the command will flow and how the work is divided. It is very clear, because the leaders, he will completely plan out what should be done, who will do it. So division work and the command is very, very clear in this style of a leadership. What are the demerits or the disadvantages? The apparent efficiency of one-way communication often become a false efficiency, since one-way communication without feedback typically leads to misunderstanding, communication breakdown, and costly errors. So here the leader is giving all the instruction to his team. So the direction of the communication is downward. The information is flowing from top to bottom, and there is no feedback mechanism. So there is a very high chance of errors happening, high chance of mistakes happening. Autocratic leader is alone in his decision making. He receives little, if any, information, ideas from his people as inputs into decision making. This is generally dangerous in today's environment of technological and organizational complexity. So here in the decision making process, only one person is involved, that's the leader, and he's not really getting much information or the input from all other people in the organization. And we know that nowadays the organization, with the evolvement of the technology, the kind of a decision we have to make are very, very complex. Based on one person's decision, there is a it might lead into a more risk. So when decision making is involved, a set of people should be there with a different background, then the decision will be much better compared to one person deciding on the complex problems. Today, most people resent authoritarian rule, which excludes them from involvement, reduces them to machine-like cogs without human dignity or importance. They express their resentment in the form of massive resistance, low moral, and low productivity. This is the disadvantages, because many people, they does not like the authoritarian rule, because it's an environment where everybody should work as a team. If the leader is commanding, then team may not like it. So they will have their morale will be low, their productivity will be low, and there will be a constant resistance from the team for the whatever the policies, rules, plans that are proposed by the leader. That is the disadvantages of autocratic leadership. Next one is the democratic leadership. In case of this type of a leadership, this is also known as participative or person-oriented leadership. The entire group is involved in accepts the responsibility or goal setting and achievement. In case of a democratic, as the name suggests, in case of a democratic leadership, the complete team, the whole team is involved in making policies, making decisions, making plans, setting goals, okay, how to achieve them, how to work on this. All aspects are done with the consent and involvement of the complete team. Subordinates have considerable freedom of action. The leader shows greater concern for his people than for high production. So here the subordinates have a lot of freedom, because most of the actions are taken by the how to do it part is taken by the team. They will decide how it should be done, and leader is more focused on the team, all the people, rather than worrying about too much about the production. Part of the leader's task is to encourage and reinforce constructive interrelationship among the members and reduce intergroup conflict and tension. So in this style of leadership, he encourages in the team, that will increase the environment where there is a productivity. When we have a group of people, when they are collaborating with each other, the definitely the productivity will increase, and he will also focus on making sure that if there is any intragroup conflict or tension, he will work on those to resolve them. Democratic leadership, he serves more as a coordinator or an agent for the group. Hence, the group is not dependent upon him as an individual and can function effectively in absence. So, he's more like a coordinator, means he's coordinating the whole activity around. He is not too much involved in what kinds of action the individuals are taking. So, even in his absence, the work will carry on without any problem. While democratic leader is not the key figure like an authoritarian leader, he is still the boss and cannot avoid the exercise of authority any more than the can avoid responsibility of what happens to his organization. Okay, similar to authoritarian leader, a democratic leader will have his all the power, or he will have all the authority, but he will not use that power. Rather, he will use the uh, other style, like a personal behavior, he to influence the people and making sure that the all the work is getting done according to the objectives. The advantages of democratic: when people participate in the help formulate a decision, they support it and work hard to make it work. See, when the human tendency is like, whenever you are involved in decision making, okay, certain activity has to be carried out, and you are also part of that activity, and you are also a contributor, how it should be done and what should be done. when you are executing those things, because it is your own ideas, as a part of your involvement, you will be more supportive of that. Okay, so you will be personally involved in those activities, and you will be highly motivated. Leader consistency receives the benefit of the best information, ideas, and suggestions, and talent and operating experience of his. See, when the leader is a democratic, he is very open to the team. Team can interact with him, so that is the reason he will get lot of information. Okay, lot of ideas, lot of suggestions from the team, which can be implemented in the activities. The style of leadership rise in the organization. So this style will help people because everybody is empowered. Okay, he has a greater freedom, so he can focus on his development and grow in the organization. So disadvantages of this kind of a leadership style. The participative style can take enormous amount of time, may degenerate into a complete loss of leader's control. Subordinate may show greater absenteeism and tardiness. So one disadvantage is like on the when democratic style is used at the appropriate level, it is good. When it is like too much of a democratic style without using the authority, if he fails to use the authority where it is required, there is a higher chance that the leader will completely lose the control, right? When he loses the complete control, then subordinate show like their behavior, there could be higher absenteeism, a lot of other issues that can come up in the team. That can happen when this style is like it is when the leader is too liberal. Some leaders may use this style as a way of avoiding responsibility. So another reason for disadvantage is some of the leaders, they choose this style just to avoid the responsibility, since they don't want to take certain responsibility, to just to pass it on to the their subordinates or the team. They might use this as an opportunity. Next one is the free rein leadership. So in this type of leadership, it's also called as laissez-faire leadership. The leader exercise absolutely no control. So in this kind of style, you can think it is a bottom up. Okay, so all the things will come from the bottom, and the leader will not exercise any of the control. He only provides information, materials, and facilitates his men to enable them to accomplish group objectives. So he is just a provider of whatever the requirement is there for the team, the material, whatever the facilities are required, and so that the team will accomplish the objective. This type can be disaster if leader does not know well the competence and integrity of his people and their ability to handle this kind of a freedom. So this kind of a leadership is very dangerous when the team is not competent. Okay, and there is a lack of integrity. In that case, what will happen is, if the leader is not able to assess the ability of his team, then it is a total disaster. So this is the diagram. So it shows the use of authority. So upper triangle, you can see the use of authority, whatever the positional power they have, how they can use it. And bottom portion shows that area of freedom permitted to subordinates. If you see like autocratic leader centered methods, he completely uses his authority. He doesn't use any area for freedom to be given to the subordinates. And opposite to that is the free rein. Okay, in that case, he completely uses the freedom, means he gives all the freedom to the team. He does not exercise any kind of a control, or he does not exercise any kind of a authority. democratic participative method, you can see there is a balance of freedom given to the team as well as the authority that is exercised. So those are the different types of leadership, and many times that question has been asked, what are the different types of leadership advantages and disadvantages. And leader need not be exactly autocratic, or he is always democratic, or always he is free then. So there can be a combination when leader is handling certain team. His behavior can change according to the situation. So if let's say he is a very democratic, but in case of a emergency, he might exercise the yeah, he might exercise autocratic. He can behave like a autocratic because that is the requirement. And let us say the team is very very competent. They know what to. They know exactly what to be done. They are highly expertise. If leader has that kind of a confidence, he can move towards the free rank, where he can give the complete freedom to the team, all the employees, and he can be just the facilitator. Next one is the communication. Communication is the most important aspect of any organization. So communication plays a major role. So whatever we talked about, the so far leadership and planning and everything, communication is the key. How team communicates, how lower level management talks to the upper management. There is a communication channel across the organization. How well the communication channels are present, it depends on the communication level will decide upon what kind of a outcome it will come. So communication has a greater impact on the kind of work being done. We'll see that in detail. Communication has been variously defined by a number of writers. So basic communication is what? Communication is passing the information in a very basic structure. Sender, there is a sender, there is a medium, there is a receiver. So that is a basic communication, and different writers have different way they have defined the communication. So according to Newman and Summer, it is an exchange of facts, ideas, opinions, or emotions by two or more persons. Then next writer defines it: sum of all the things one person does when he wants to create understanding in the minds of another. Okay, that's another. Simply stated, communication means the process of passing information and understanding from one person to another. That's another way of putting the communication. A proper understanding of information is one very important aspect of a communication. So whatever the information being passed, whether it is understood, properly understood, he is communicating to his team, whatever he intends to communicate, he should make sure that his team understands the same. There is no communication gap, or there is no noise, so that what leader is saying, it is understood in a different way by the team, and it might result in the losses. If the information is not understood by the receiver in the same meaning in which its sender wants it to be understood, the purpose of communication is defeated. So what I want, what I mean, okay, when I'm communicating, if that is not understood by the receiver, then it is the failure of the communication. This may result in confusion, chaos, and organization inefficiency, leading to non-fulfillment of business goals. So if there is a communication problem, then it can lead to inefficiency or loss of business, okay, loss of business goals. Many things can happen. In short, communication is not merely transmission of information from one person to another, but also correct interpretation and understanding of the information. So when we are communicating, when we are teaching a certain thing, whether it is completely understood, okay, whatever receiver is receiving, can he able to make the correct interpretation of what the sender is trying to say? That's all. That is a most important aspect of the communication. It is not to get something off the mind of the person transmitting it, but to get something into the mind and actions of the person receiving it. So it is not like just taking the information out of one mind and putting it into another mind. Rather, it is much more than that. It is the proper interpretation. Whatever the sender is sending, it should be interpreted in the same way what the sender is trying to communicate. Importance of communication. So as we understand, so communication is very important. How it is important? So the classicists ignored the importance of the communication for they believed that business unit was only technical and formal structure. So earlier, like classical approach, they ignored the communication part. Okay, they did not give much importance of the communication because they thought the business unit is nothing but a technical and formal structure. Other than that, it is nothing. However, after the 30s, as a result of the Hawthorne experiments, it was realized for the first time that the organization structure is a social system involving the interaction of people working at different levels, and proper communication among them is necessary for achieving the goals of the organization. So later it was understood when we have the organizational structure, how the structure will communicate. So how the interperson communication within the team, between the team will happen, so that all of them will all of them will work together as a single team towards achieving the organizational goals. And it is communication is the basis for the organization's existence from the birth of the organization throughout its life. When communication stops, organization comes to an end. So whenever there is a stop in the communication, then that means that is the end of the organization. Okay, some important purposes which communication serves are as under. Okay, why we have to communication? Communication is needed in the recruitment process to persuade potential employees of the merits of working for the enterprise. The recruits are told about the company's organization structure, its policies and practices. One is in the recruitment process, there is a lot of communication is done, where the employer will tell about the organization, what kind of a organization, what kind of a work is involved in their organization, and the employees will try to understand that particular aspect of the organization, and if he feels he is in line with those kind of a businesses, those kind of a technologies, then he will present himself with his knowledge. Okay, so recruitment whole process, it's a selection process, interviews, where they are trying to communicate so that we get for the organization requirement the perfect match or the perfect employee can be found out. So that is how that is one of the important aspects of the communication. Communication is needed for the area of orientation to make people acquainted with the peer superiors and companies rules and regulations. So whenever you join the companies, okay, let us say next semester you appear for the campus, okay, you get recruited. The first thing that will happen when you join any organization is the orientation, that they call it as a orientation. The orientation will make sure that they give the complete information about their organization, okay, their people, their structure, okay, their rules, their regulation, so that you will be aware of all those things. So that is a orientation. That's another purpose for the communication. Communication is needed to enable employees to perform their functions effectively. Employees need to know their jobs, relationships, and importance to overall operation. So why communication is important? You should know what kind of a job you are going to do, right? Unless you are being communicated properly, given the information, you will not understand what kind of a job you have to perform. Communication is needed to acquaint the subordinates with the evaluation of their contribution to enterprise activity. it's a matter of some motivational importance for subordinates to know from their superior. So communication is needed to get acquainted with all the subordinates. Communication is needed to teach employees about the personal safety on the job. Okay. What are the personal safety? It is not from the perspective of a IT industry. It is more from the perspective of a manufacturing, where it plays a vital importance. Personal safety is very, very important when you are working in a manufacturing sector, because there are a lot of machineries used, lot of moving parts. Okay. So communication is important, where you are trained how to be safe. What are the safety measures you have to train? Communication is of vital importance in the projecting the image of an enterprise. Okay. So how the image of the enterprise is built? One of the main is how they communicate. Okay. How they present to the external environment, how they present to the world, how they present to the other companies, how they present to the government bodies. That is how their image is built. Communication helps the manager in his decision process. Okay. So communication is required for managers in order to make certain decisions. Communication helps in achieving coordination. In large organization working on the basis of a division of labor and specialization, there is need for the coordination among the component parts. So coordination, we will look into that in detail, but coordination is very, very important when you are working in a team, especially in a large organization. If you are working on a certain component which is divided into many other parts, and those parts are assembled together to make the overall product, coordination is very, very important. So one example is the airline industry, manufacturing of the aeroplanes. If you don't know, like the different parts of the aeroplanes are built in totally different kinds of places. Certain factory will be manufacturing the wing. Certain factory will be just focusing on the cockpit. Certain things will be focusing on the engine. So all these things have to be coordinated properly. If there is no proper communication, if there is a no coordination, then things can go terribly wrong. Communication promotes cooperation. Okay. Industrial peace. Most of these disputes in an enterprise take place because of their lack of communication or improper communication. So communication helps in the cooperation. See, okay. It is said that the word of a modern management is the word of communication and success of the manager. So the in case of a IT project, the amount of time that a project leader, okay, project manager, he spends on the communication part is itself is around 70 to 80%. So here some numbers is there, 75 to 95%. So project manner in IT industry, that's an example. Project manager spends about 70 to 80% in just the communication. So he's communicating to his team, he's communicating to the stakeholders, he's communicating to the business, he's communicating to the upper management. So he spends about 70 to 80% of his time in the communication. If the communication is proper, then the success of the projects is very high. So there are different types of communication. Okay. One is a formal communication and informal communication. As you know, what is a formal communication? Formal communication, the examples are you receiving a official letter from the college. So let us say to start your admission process, just say admission process, you will get a official communication, okay, from the office, or you get a communication from the university. Okay. Those are the official examples of the official communication. In case of an organization, whatever is related to the work, those communications are called as a formal communication. And what are the informal communication? Informal communications are there is no official tag attached to that particular communication. Those are called as a informal communication. And for formal communication, there is a proper, if proper action is required, and it is official. Suppose if you are required to take the admission, let us say by end of this month, then you have to take that admission before that, otherwise there will be consequences. In case of an informal communication, let us say your friend is telling there might be an admission process that will go till the end. Okay, that information you are getting from the informal channel, and that is your friend is telling that to you. Or best examples of informal communication is your WhatsApp, right? You communicate on the WhatsApp. It is not considered as a formal. Or you are using any public emails, right? Gmail or Yahoo, whatever the publicly available emails, those are called as a non-official communications. What is a official emails? You will get it from the company domains. So if you have observed a few of your friends who are working in their company, their email ID will be with that particular organization. It is on their email server. Let us say some person is working on TCS, his first name at tcs.com. That is the mail server, tcs.com. That's the official email. So whatever communication that happens on that particular email, he will be held responsible. Whatever communication you do on the informal communication, you will not be held responsible. Okay, so formal communication is like a official communication. And formal communication flow in four directions. So there are four directions. Downward communication, in case of, for example, autocratic leadership, the communication goes from the leader to the team. That is a downward communication. And upward communication is a free rein, is the one example. For upward communication, the communication will start from the bottom layer and it reaches to the top management. For example, if management is conducting some kind of a survey or some kind of a feedback they are taking from their employees, the information, the communication will be from the bottom to the top level. And horizontal communication, communication that happens like task coordination. Okay, working on the task, a team is working on certain task. The communication will be it will be in the peer to peer. Okay, so that we can call it as a horizontal communication. Another example is problem solving. A group of people engaged in communication to solve certain problem. Information sharing, conflict resolution, these are a horizontal communication. And external communication, any communication that happens from within the organization to the external, those communications called as external communication. If we consider this college, whatever the communication that happens within the department, intra department, all those are internal communication. If the college is communicating to the university or a AICT or a UGC, those are called as a external communication. Forms of communication. So there are different way of communication, as you already know. Oral communication, so it is like the instruction are given verbally. Okay, when leader is giving instruction to his team, he can choose to give the instruction orally, or he can give it in the written communication. So if the instructions are very complex, when normally when oral is used, when the instructions are excuse me, when instructions are very simple and easy to understand, oral communications are used because they are faster. The communication is very quick. Written communication is used when the instructions are complex. Okay, and you want to make sure that that particular information is passed on to the others, then use the written communication. Non-verbal communication is like your body language, right? It gives some kinds of information, or the way you behave, Okay, that gives some kind of a information. Those are called as a non-verbal communications. And what are the barriers to communication? Why communication fails, or what are the challenges, or what are the barriers for the communication? Badly expressed message means the expression of the message is not proper. It has ambiguity, so that is badly expressed message. Faulty organization in a large scale enterprises where the chain of command is too long the span control too big, communication will be poor. So if the communication span is too long, okay, and the communication chain is too long, span is too big, then there is a chance that it might lead to some communication gaps. Distrust of communicator. Some executives are noted for their habits of countermanding, modifying their original communication. So some communicator, whatever the original messages they got, when they are giving it to the their next level, there is a chance that they can modify some of the information. That will be a big problem for the proper communication. Restricting communication in a downward communication. In this case, leader has got certain amount of information. When he is passing on to his team, he might think some of the information is not required. That will lead to some kind of a problem. Poor retention. Okay, studies show that employees retain only 50% of the communicated information. So here the example I give is a poor retention is like when we give the pass on the information to someone, only like most of the cases only 50% is retained. So when like when you guys ask for the notes, the reason I tell is when you read the book, the information is 100%. When we make the notes, that is compressed. Okay, maybe it is like 20 to 30%. And when you read that notes, okay, which is just 20 to 30%, when you reproduce it in the exam, it may be hardly 10 to 15%. So you should have access to the full information. When you read the books, textbooks, the amount of information that goes into your head is much higher. So that is the poor retention. And different backgrounds. One reason for distortion of a meaning is that different individuals often interpret the same communication differently. So based on their background, the interpretation would be different for the same kind of information. In group language, often occupational or social groups develop their own terminology or in group language. So if you have seen a certain organization, the groups, they will have their own language that will lead to a communication problems. Inattention, not giving much attention to the information that is passing on. Physical barriers. These are environmental factors which prevent to reduce the sending the information. And last one is the poor understanding. The person who is giving the information himself doesn't understand the complete information. He has. Okay, we'll stop here. Controlling, we'll see it in the next class.